last topic we need to discuss is the muscle metabolism. How do we get ATP? We talked about the three ways, or the three things we need ATP for: the power stroke, to detach actin and myosin, and to put calcium back into the terminal cisternae via active transport. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about muscle, and then we're going to go into the ways of getting ATP. So muscle, 75% of your skeletal muscle is made up of water. The reason why there's a lot of water, because water is a great conductor of electricity. Right, 20% muscle is protein, and then 5% is high energy, and the high energy comes from phosphates, which we're going to talk about in a second. We've got some lactic acid, calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus. ATP, so adenine triphosphate. I was right. We talked about in the one class, it does have a ribose sugar. So you have your adenine molecule here, you've got your ribose sugar, and then you've got triphosphate, 1, 2, 3. And what happens is one of the phosphate break out of this, and we're not going to get into the chemistry of this, but there's a reaction that takes place and decomposes this bond, and that is the energy that we need. Okay, that is our energy source of our body. How do we make ATP? There's three ways. You get it through creatine phosphate, which is through foods, aerobic respiration, which for my bio people, that's the citric acid cycle, and then anaerobic, which is glycolysis. Creatine phosphate, let's see, real simple. Creatine phosphate plus ADP gives you creatine plus ATP. What does that mean? So in foods that you eat, fish, chicken, meats, steak, right, they have creatine in them. So in the foods that you eat, it gives you that source. ADP is an unused or a renewable energy source in our body that just kind of sits within the cells. So when you add these two things together, we get our ATP. Okay. You can also take supplements. If you ever go to a GNC store, they sell creatine phosphate for working out, bodybuilding, etc., because that is a quick energy source. So one creatine phosphate gives you 1 ATP. So it's not a significant way to get energy. Let's kind of look at this. I like this graph. This is the one I go over in class if we had lecture. Is this. So creatine phosphate gives you the 1 ATP. We just kind of talked about that. The other way is anaerobic and aerobic respiration. So there's kind of a lot that goes on in this. I'm just going to kind of keep it simple. Okay, both of them start with glucose. So where do we get glucose from? We get it from carbs in things that we eat. Bread, pasta, fruit has glucose. Okay, glucose is a six-ring sugar. Okay, so you have this glucose, and what happens is the glucose molecule splits in two. Right, it splits in two. It's like six carbons, and you split them in 2 3-ring carbons, if we're getting technical in the chemistry. So you take the glucose and you split it in half, and you get what we call 2 pyruvic acids. Okay, we are going to just kind of gloss over this because there's a lot of like biology and kind of chemistry in this, but we're going to kind of gloss over it and kind of talk about what you start with and what the end result is. So glucose, you break it in half, you get 2 pyruvic acids. This pyruvic acid goes in 2 different pathways. If this pyruvic acid does not have oxygen, which means it lacks oxygen, all right, that is called anaerobic respiration. So anaerobic means there's not oxygen for this respiration, right? So it's a very quick energy source. All right, you have enough energy, ATP here, for an activity that's up to about 3 minutes. So, for example, I always use the toboggan slides by Swallow Cliff. If you sprinted up there, does your body produce enough oxygen for you to conduct that activity? Can you sprint a mile at a full sprint? Maybe some of you can. I know I can't. But what that means is this pyruvic acid does not have enough oxygen for the activity at task. So what happens is that pyruvic acid gets converted into lactic acid. That's why Richard Simmons back in the day would like feel the burn, and what he was talking about was this lactic acid. If you sprinted up the toboggan slides, if you ever do that one day, you'll know what I'm talking about. That's that burning in the muscles that you feel produced by this pathway. Okay. Lactic acid gets brought or transported to the liver, okay, where, you know, after some time in your body kind of repaying the debt of the intense activity, that will eventually get converted back into glycogen. So it's almost like a reusable energy source, all right, to make sure your body doesn't deplete itself. If you look over here, glucose, again, from the foods that you eat. All right, one thing I maybe missed over there, like when you have the pasta parties for games and things, when you have the pasta party the night before a soccer game, basically what you're doing is you're filling up the tank. All right, you fill up the liver. The liver hosts or stores rings or links of glucose molecules called glycogen, just waiting for use. And as soon as your sport happens, right, your blood gets flooded with these glucose molecules that you can use for the activity. And that's here. So in aerobic respiration, pyruvic acid goes into the citric acid cycle, and the end result, okay, and the end result for here, we had 2 ATP. The end result for here is 34 to 36 ATP. I know it says 38, but you lose a couple ATP in the cycle. We're not going to go through all the steps, but the point is one glucose molecule in anaerobic makes 2 ATP. One glucose molecule in an aerobic makes 34 to 36 ATP. Okay. These activities would be, you know, could you go on the treadmill at 5.0 and do a jog, you know, and then just sit there. You could do that all day because the activity has enough oxygen, or your body makes enough oxygen for that activity. So again, the difference between this and this is this activity, you're not producing enough oxygen to meet the demands, where this one you are. Okay. So this is how your body makes ATP. Either glucose splitting, making 2, this glucose splits, goes into the cycle, makes 36, and then creatine phosphate. Okay, a couple definitions of an oxygen debt. Oxygen debt is going to be the time it takes to repay your body, okay, the intense activity you did. In other words, it's just the time to convert lactic acid back into glycogen to use it again. Okay, so you're paying back your body for the intense workout that you did. Muscle cramp, we talked about this the other day. If you lack ATP, you don't have enough ATP to detach the actin and myosin. So that's what a muscle cramp is. Okay, we kind of talked about anaerobic activities, 100-yard dash. All right, these activities are going to use fast, quick twitch fibers. And let's talk about fibers in your body. So you can train your muscles to have various types of fibers. You've got fast twitch, slow twitch, and intermediate. If you're fast twitch, they're white muscle. So if we dissect the catch, you're going to see some of the parts of the muscle is white, some of them is a little pinker, or like a you know, kind of like a maroon color. So if you're fast twitch, you're white, because your muscle is anaerobic. It doesn't use oxygen. So it's a fast twitch, very short term, short distance, like a sprinter, 100-yard meter, 50-yard meter. So if your fast fibers, they're white, fast twitch. If you're slow, they're going to be red. And the reason why they're going to be red is a protein found. It's called myoglobin. Myo means muscle, globin means cell that's going to, or protein that's going to bring oxygen, just kind of like hemoglobin. So in the myoglobin, okay, if you're like a marathon runner, you're going to have a lot of mitochondria. You're going to have a lot of myoglobin. Okay, that's what makes the muscle red because of the activities that you're doing. Okay, so someone who's a long distance is going to have a reddish in their muscle because of the myoglobin. Someone who's a sprinter or short distance is going to have white. You could be intermediate. You could have both, and that's kind of called pink. A perfect sport would be like soccer, where you can run 6 miles, but there's also like short bursts of sprints in there. So you have to train sprinting, but you also have to train long distance, and you have both fast and slow. Okay, we kind of talked about this. One year I actually brought a chicken to kind of show, you know, the leg of a chicken is red muscle. Okay, it's got the red meat because the chicken just walks on its leg, right? The wing of a chicken is white, or the breast is white because of they don't do a ton of any activity they have to do is going to be very quick. Okay, no, that's it. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you guys for listening, and we will also go over this as well to kind of review it when we get back. Thanks.